everybody. Welcome to story teaser number 7. If you haven't seen any of these, I'm not going to repeat what the hell we're doing. You're going to have to go back. We've done 6 of them for the fourfold formula. It is a book about all things wellness. What does that mean? There are 4 quadrants in your life: heart, spirit, mind, and body. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the book, but we also have a couple of authors here. I have my co-author, Dr. Markus Wettstein, MD. Wettstein.
I am impressed.
Yeah.
And I have him here, and we have been on a hell of a ride for the last 6 or 7 months. So if you guys want to hear anything about our story, you can go on to peggywillms.com and read a little bit about us. James Redfield is writing the foreword to our book. If you don't know anything about him, look him up. He wrote Celestine Prophecy. That book has sold over 23 million copies. Super cool dude. We have over 30. We have, like Marcus, we have 40 storytellers in this book right now. Who are they? Marcus and myself. We have 30 contributing authors, and we have 7 media partners. So it's a pretty big deal. And the reason that we did this is why? Because we want to tell stories. That's why. Stories about heart, spirit, mind, and body. Authentic stories. After COVID especially, I think it's really important for us to all have relationships, to communicate, to get our feelings out there, and to make sure that we connect and we're authentic. We went home, we were stuck behind our computers, and I think we have messages to get out there. We have the youngest storyteller I believe we have is 20. We have 2 21-year-olds. We have a gentleman in the house that's about 30-ish.
No, I am 30.
30? You look so mature. I didn't want to say. We have a span, and we have all over the world. We have Ghana and England and New England and Montreal and Washington and Germany, all over the place. So let me just get this party started. Why is this one special? Well, you can see that Nick has Wettstein on his little box here. You can see he has his name. And that's my co-author's name. And you could look at him and you could go, ooh, I might see a little bit of resemblance. A little bit. We have father and son in the house.
You poor boy.
I got stuck with both their asses, you guys. I was saying before we started taping. I know, in the same room, in the same light. I remember when Nick,
Peggy, you got a car coming. You might want to watch out.
I did this for you guys because we all started in Colorado. I'm going to tell you about the gal in the room here in a second, but this kind of reminds me, this backdrop of Colorado. You guys, I met Marcus in Grand Junction, Colorado, running his clinics. And Nick, dude, you were a teenager when I met you. You're late teens.
I guess so. Are you sure?
Are you saying that I don't
21?
remember because I'm old? So I've known your dad for 13 years. So yeah, I think you were a junior in high school. I know a lot.
No, that was Natan. That was totally Natan, my brother. I was like 9.
Do you want me to do the math for you? 30 minus 13, 17. I thought you had all these.
I definitely wasn't here though at
That's
17.
Right.
I was staying in Connecticut.
But you moved there when you were in your late teens.
I moved to Boulder.
Yeah.
It
was always just a guest. That's it.
Yeah. I didn't even have a room. I had the basement.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've all had to sleep in the basement.
Yeah.
I think I ended up in Marcus's basement at one time when one of my relationships went to hell. Anyway, I digress. All right. So here's a really unique situation. We have my co-author who's the dad, and you guys, Nick is also a contributing author for the book. So it's super cool that we have both of them, but we also have someone special in the room, and Angi is my sister. And not a lot of people know that or have, hi sissy. Not a lot of people have connected that. And I was telling these guys before I hit the record button is that Angi is very respectful of what I do, and I'm very respectful of what she does. We're 7 years apart. And whether she's come to one of my retreats or been in one of my groups, she's always treated me as a coach. She'll call me coach. She does her homework and the content or whatever. And I also kind of protect her. I don't call her out any differently than I would anybody else. And I've honored that same thing with this book. So I didn't come out saying my sister's writing a story. However, today we are coming at you for one message, really. We are all a part of each other's life. Obviously, I'm in Angi's life, and I had to edit her story. And I'm reading her story, and there were big chunks of it I didn't know anything about. And Markus is an editor of this book. So when I get the stories and I'm going back and forth with the authors, he then gets them. And thus he sees his son's story. And I end up working with Nick on his story as we are, peeling back the onion like we do. And then his dad gets the story and how it evolved from the first time he saw it, Nick, because we worked on it to try to get it to a place where we both felt like it had the message and it honored what you wanted to say. So I guess what I really want to say today, you guys, is that everybody has a perspective of the same story, the same event. And in this book, we honor that. Hi. All right, Markus, I would like you to read a chunk. You and I wrote, I think, three stories for the book, and then we do an introduction of the chapters, and we do some key ingredients. We got our shit spread all throughout the book, don't we, buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it in German?
Well, no, I could translate it though, if you want me to.
We are going to go into Germany. Yes, cheers. It will save us so much money if you just translate it yourself,
Travel to Germany, yes.
Okay.
You want me to get started?
Get the party started, yes. I'll try not to joke because some of the stories are heavy. So you go.
So here we go. My parents grew up in Germany during World War II. At that time, everyone their age enrolled in a program called Hitler Youth. This was a kindergarten used for indoctrination. As a result, my parents' values and knowledge were groomed to reflect Aryan supremacy, the master race. They were promised 1,000 years of paradise. Instead, they lived in air raid bunkers and suffered severe starvation. I heard a lot of gruesome stories from my parents. A child should never have witnessed these atrocities. They certainly left a lot of scars. Unfortunately, there was never any time to turn inward and to take care of these scars. After the war, Germany had to rebuild its infrastructure and housing, which had been reduced to rubble. My parents had to rebuild too. On top of that, they had to raise 3 children. Those were difficult times, and generally speaking, children were considered a nuisance. Kids were supposed to be seen, not heard. So, matters of the heart were either disregarded or evaluated as unnecessary. My siblings and I grew up in a pragmatic environment where feelings had no place. Expressions of love drew ridicule. Buying flowers for a loved one was a waste of money. In fact, money was the focal point of almost all activities. The only emotion we saw on repeat was my father's outbursts of anger. He frequently turned verbally and physically abusive. Despite having lost the war, the sense of belonging to the master race remained ingrained. This caused a constant need to express his superiority. There also was an expectation for his children to be extraordinary. Anytime I fell short, the abuse surfaced. As a result, I avoided contact with my father at an early age. Even my mother, who had to work full-time, was unavailable to discuss matters of the heart most of the time.
Yeah. Thank you, Markus. Nick, what are your thoughts? Because that's your history, right? Obviously, it's your family history. So, and you haven't heard that story. So what are some of your thoughts?
Well, honestly, like generally speaking, I did kind of hear some of that story before, just not in detail. And I think it's really cool to share that side with people from America, because they don't really get to see that side. And they had no idea what was going on the other side. They were just shooting each other, right? So having that perspective is definitely something to look forward to. And honestly, like, I don't know, I kind of get excited when he like has something to say, because it's like, I don't know, it's just completely different side of the story, you know, that no one talks about over here. So yeah, I like this perspective.
I love that. You know, it's interesting, and it's a different spin when you watch this happen. We had a mother and daughter on yesterday that are part of the book too. So Sophia Long and her mom, Jackie Long, ironically, if you go back and look at the teaser from last night, are writing about the same event in their life, but neither of them knew it. So we chose out of the gate to keep those stories in secrecy until the night before the taping. Yesterday, they read each other's stories.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really emotional. But my point is it's different. Like I'm looking at you and your dad, and I'm thinking your dad could sit down with you and go, Nick, this is how it was over there. Times are tough, buddy. You think times are tough now? That's bullshit, right? And it's one way you would hear it like, come on, Dad, give me a break. But this perspective through real eyes and real emotions, because I was watching you and it's like almost brings me to tears. It's like so freaking cool to see this.
Yep.
I just love you guys.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Markus, how did it feel for you to share those types of words? Were you aware that Nick was listening? Were you aware of your own emotions? Like what was happening as you were sharing that?
Well, the emotions keep on showing up. I mean, there is, there's the words, and then there is the content, the emotional aspect of it. And even now, after I wrote it down, it was definitely something that decreased in intensity of, emotionality. But it is still very strong. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, I noticed myself, I get choked up.
I do. Yeah, I do.
Because, it still has an impact. It does not leave, that type of stuff. But being able to put it on paper and sharing it does relieve a lot of the really nasty pressures that sometimes show up.
And knowing that you're going to have somebody else listen to it and help somebody, just like Nick said, that was the first thing. I mean, how unselfish. The first thing he said is, well, he kind of deflected actually. And when I asked him how he felt about it, he went right to how big of an impact it's going to make for people over here to hear about a story like that. So I hope that you really believe what, you're walking the talk, Markus, because that's what we're telling all our storytellers is that you could change lives and save lives with these stories. So I hope you also realize that's what you're going to do.
Absolutely.
I can also do an explanation on how I felt too. I just felt like I needed to say that thing too, because it's definitely a story that should be heard over here.
Yeah. Did you feel the impact that your dad did? Like did you connect with like, that's my family story too? Or how's my dad doing emotionally with this? What
I was getting a little choked up at some point because it was very deep and family roots,
Yeah.
and more understanding.
Oh, that's awesome. Bringing the world together. All right, now let's share your story. You ready, Nick?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a hard one to go off of because
no, it's not.
so
Everybody's everybody's story is unique. Yours is going to make a big impact too. Trust me.
Yeah, I mean, mine is like just jokester kind of thing, like
because you're hiding the emotion. That's the point of your story.
Is it?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. 42. 42 is the answer to life. Just joking. All jokes aside, I believe life should be fun, full of adventure, filled with jokes and genuine connections to people. Sometimes life throws you a curveball and you become hurt, sad, angry, confused, vengeful, scared, the list goes on. For me, an emotion that continually shows at my doorstep is anger. If there was a superhero that best resembles my character, it would be the Hulk. I have, as my mom says, a heart of gold. I care a lot for each individual person, but when I get angry, I explode. The only difference is I don't turn green, I don't go Super Saiyan, I don't get big bulging muscles, and when I calm down, I'm not noob. Don't worry, I don't go out pummeling people. Rage is what I'm known for, a rage almost uncontrollable. Like wildfire ripping through the forest, I give no remorse. At an early age of around 12, I started to see how my friends, other students like me, were changing. I saw increasing injustices in the world and frequent unfairness in how we were treating each other. It felt as if everything around me came crashing down all at once like a tsunami ready to sweep me whole. One so big it would take me in and out to sea, the undertow. as if we were to be lost in the unknown forever. That was.
You're such an eloquent speaker. I just want to say something before your dad speaks, and then I want to ask Angie about both of your stories. But when I first got your story, it's very similar to everybody's story. It's this emotional dump of words, right? And I go into like this exciting place because I'm very left brain. So in my brain, I fragment things. So I'm looking at cutting and pasting chronologically and moving and shaping things, because that's like, I've worked with you a lot on this. So you had this, and so I knew yours was raw stuff because it was there. And I mean, we went from 800 words to 2,500 words to back again to metaphors to in the ocean to out. But once we brought this to a way to get your words out, you are very eloquent speaker, writer. And when we get you to the coping skills that you're learning and working through is going to change and save lives, Nick. That's why I was so adamant about making you a part of this book, which you came to me behind your dad's back. I love it.
A little bit, yeah.
I love the power of pressure. So
wait,
what did you, go ahead, sweetie.
Did Dad actually read it? You said you sent it over to him, but I don't know.
When we got to agreement, I didn't send him. I don't send him anything until I'm totally massaged it with the author.
Oh, okay. So he actually read it. You actually read it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right.
Reading them too is one thing. That's what I'm hearing about this process, is that when people write compilation books, and I've said this in every video, Nick, but I still believe it from the bottom of my heart. I've interviewed a lot of people in compilation books. I've interviewed a lot of authors. But what I'm really hearing that I love that Markus and I are sticking to, your dad and I are sticking to, is we said we are going to build relationships with this and lead from the heart, or we're not doing it. And we are only going to surround ourselves with people that come from their heart. And so with that, I said from the beginning, we are all going to know each other, and I'm not going to have anybody in an interview with anybody that doesn't know anybody. So what I'm hearing with these teasers is that it's one thing to grab a book and read your story, but to hear Nick talk about his story in these videos is way different than just reading your story. So Markus, you read your son's story. Now you heard him speak it. What are your thoughts?
Well, it is difficult to feel your way into that kind of rage. I know that when that happens to me, I get basically pretty much disabled by abdominal discomfort, when something like this intense happens, and that incapacitates me. So I'm definitely, like Nicholas also, who has probably part of this, couldn't become out of this rage sort of a shooter or something like that, right?
Right.
What do you mean?
A clear-cut line between what the inside is feeling and what you would express to the outside world. There's a big line there, and I don't think that in this family we have the ability to move into the radical expressions right now. You guys are so
empathetic and empaths and loving. And I think, when you guys both talk, and I'm not going to get into the coachy thing, but I hear just maybe, Angie, I'm going to ask you about their stories, but when you talked of your dad, Markus, and the anger, and then where I'm going, Nick, right? Did you feel this? And then I listened to you, how your tummy is always affected. I've worked with you for a long time, and I know your tummy, Markus, when you get nervous to speak or do talks, and yours goes to that. So you have to cope with that really quickly, because it is non-functioning if you do not get a grip of your anger or those other things. Then you come through generational curse. Then you come through your son, right?
Yeah, right.
Isn't affected gastro, that type of way, right? He can do something physically and kind of go, well, what the hell was that, man? That probably wasn't a good coping skill. But I saw the generation skip through when you guys were talking.
Yeah.
Wow, that is. Angie, what were your thoughts of either of the stories, sis? What'd you think?
It's, well, you see so much, like with Markus's, of the timeline of history. and you see it on TV, on the History Channel, and you don't really know anybody personally per se. They're out there, but to know somebody or to be in these in this environment with somebody that's been through it or close, you know, with his parents and things, it's kind of scary in a way. It's like Nick said, you don't talk about it here in America. It's unsaid, it's over, you moved on, but now Marcus, I mean, he's had to deal with that. He's had to deal with, yeah, and then it like being passed down, like you just said to Nick, consciously or subconsciously. It's there now. Nick's having to learn how to deal with it and not knowing what's causing it, or maybe he does, but it's suppressed so much that now when he's talking or speaking of it, either one of them, or it's raw emotions. It's bringing things out. I feel that when I was writing my story, I was like, oh, I don't like this yucky stuff. This is, ugh. But I feel better. And like Marcus said, every time you do it or read it or say it, it's not as bad or as intense as it was.
Mhm.
You know, it helps you to get things out and then move on.
Right.
That's awesome. All righty, you ready to read your story?
No.
I know.
All right. You ready?
I am.
Okay. One day when by myself, I got curious. I had been wondering what it was that David was snorting up his nose and how it made him feel. When he left for work, I opened the cupboard door in our bedroom. I saw a mound of pinkish colored powder on the same pretty antique mirror. I chopped it up with the same razor I had seen him use. I lined it up in 2.5 3-inch lines. I was so nervous, I didn't even know what to expect. I snorted 1 line and then 2. It burned the lining of my nose, but that didn't matter because the immediate high was euphoric. I had never felt anything like it before. My heart began to race, and I felt like the hair on my head was growing. When I showed up at work the day of my little experiment, David noticed I couldn't stop talking. When we got home, he checked his stash and noticed that there was some of his powder missing off the mirror. That is when I told him I had tried it. I started out doing a few lines a day, but I mostly smoked it. I never shot up. My cravings escalated and I wanted more and more. I was using about 0.5 gram a day, sometimes more depending on how potent it was. After a few months of use, a little sleep, I had lost around 80 pounds. It was such a good feeling to be thin. I'd always been a bit on the heavier side growing up, and I had finally found something that made the weight come off. I still didn't directly correlate the drug to the weight loss. Ironically, while I was hurting my body with my drug use, I was trying to become more active. Like running in the desert during the summer is a good idea when your heart is racing before you start. This was the beginning of using this drug nearly every day for 7 years.
Yes. I turn speechless every time, you know, because I mean, it is so open, you know, with something that is so much dramatically impacting so many people that you wind up being, you know, I mean, it gives me goosebumps every time. That's very deep, right?
You know, when we talked about you doing this book, I called Marcus and I said, how are we going to set the boundaries on this? How do we feel about this book? And I didn't even think about other siblings coming in, or I hadn't gone that far ahead. This was a first journey for us. And I said, how are we going to feel if you know, siblings come in or parents, like, are we going to do this? Because I always go to the other side to protect people. I'm like, we're going to be doing interviews and blogging and writing. So how are we going to feel if, you know, your brother comes in, or, you know, my sister comes in, or your son? And we made a decision out of the gate. We are going to be authentic. We are going to tell stories. If we're going to say to people, we are going to be okay to do this. So when I was talking to Angie about this, she was concerned because during this period of her time, my perspective of her story during this time of which we were both there, is not the same. It is not the same. So when she is running in the desert, who is helping her run in the desert? Her trainer sister. Who has got her on a diet? Her trainer sister. Who is taking the credit for her losing 80 pounds? Her trainer sister. Who knows nothing about drugs and has no idea what she's going through. None. So when she did this story, she called me and she said, I can't do it. Can't do it. Not going to do it. Brought up too much shit. I'm not happy with you. You know, she was upset and she said, you know, that I put this to rest, Peggy. Like, I'm not doing this. And I said, sit in it, because we'd had it happen with a couple of other authors who got it stirred up and just said, I can't do this. And I said, sit in it. It's your call. Sit in it. And so you went back and kind of worked through it and dug it deeper and a little bit deeper. And then we said, go, let's go. Well, what happened after that, after she and I went through this, then it went to Markus. And Markus came back, and we're not picking favorite stories, but this story, Angie, affected Markus greatly. And part of it was, is as a physician, you know, this epidemic is out there, but you really opened up the pages of the epidemics out there. Like, somebody's in our book. And Markus, that's how you felt the first time you read that story.
Yes, yes. And I'm still there, honestly. You know, it is so profound with regards to the openness that it should be able to give other people a path to open up that way. And that's the first step to resolution. If you can't do that, then you never get out of that death cycle. And you know, I've seen a lot of people disappear from heavy drug use. You know, they just went over the edge. And so to read a story where somebody is able to open that topic up and show a path of resolution. Obviously, you didn't pick that out in your teaser, but the story contains that, and it is quite amazing. You know, it is something that is so full of hope for a lot of people. And I, you know, treat, just like you thought you were, you know, able to do your coach thing and help her out that way. I do that with patients a lot of times. And there are things in the background that are so deep that we never really reach, and we never are privy to understand for a full understanding of the person that we're dealing with. So treatment is frequently unsuccessful because we haven't really pushed the right button. This does push the right button. So,
and I do think, without giving your story away, Angie, and I hope you're okay with this, but I do want the listeners listening right in this moment to know, or I'm going to ask you, because you're in an amazing place and you've been in an amazing place for a really long time. So I just want to lift you up for anyone who's listening, and I'm not damning anyone who is active in their use and really struggling, but I just want everybody to understand is you give a massive level of hope to people. So I don't want them to feel like we have opened you up, and I mean, your story is a beautiful story. So I just don't want them to think that we've carved you open and we're leaving you. You know, I just think that's important to honor where you've done the work.
Thank you.
Nick, what are your thoughts?
It was definitely intense. And yeah, like my dad said earlier, like there's like no words because of how intense it was, you know. That being said, yeah, it was something that I don't usually come across myself, because I don't actually have that particular flavor of an issue. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how people all have their different issues that we're all dealing with, and how we're trying to overcome them. And I think the book overall is going to be a good one, because it's like it sounds like there's a really good variety of people and topics that we're talking about that will if I mean anyone picking it up, they can just go straight to a page that they connect with and just start reading that straight up. And I mean, maybe that's all they read because that's the one they connect with, you know.
Right.
And that's what's going to be helpful, I think, the book in general.
And I think that's a perfect way to kind of end this. And we know that it's a little longer today, but we just wanted to share. It's really a perfect epitome of what the book is about. And Nick, you named it. It's kind of like a living word, and bear with me, I'm not saying this is the Bible. What I'm saying is that as we go through life, our events and things change. And so you're right with the book. Somebody may not have a broken relationship right now, or have lost a dog or a house, or, struggle with anger, but in 5 years they might. And it's one of those books you can pick back up and resonate with a human being that did go through it. And so it's just that type of, and having 40, they're 40 people.
And that's the amazing part, and all of those 40 stories are very unique and very individual. There is nothing that is the same. I thought, we're going to get 20 divorces or something like that. No.
The statistics say it's so.
Well, it's a prevalent topic, but it's not just that, and that's what another aspect that really got me, that so many people have so many different colorful lives, and there is just no end to storytelling, honestly.
I love it. Well, thank you guys for going on this journey with both of us too, because easily you could have said, hey, I don't want to be a part of this. And thank you so much. And, love you guys, and you are family to me. Obviously, I'm stuck with the girl in the pink shirt. Anyway. But okay, I love you guys. And we're going to peace out. If anybody has any questions about this, Peggy at allthingswellness.com. And also, I'm going to put a link to my YouTube channel, because I'm going to put all of these chats in the link when I post this actual number 7 chat. So you can go there and you can see them all in one little place in case you have nothing else to do when you're outside walking in the sun today. All right, or you're having a beer out by the barbecue. High five. All right, you guys, see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.